And as soon as that, downloaded in my brain, on the tail of that, right came that thought, no, wait a minute, it's not the divine is in the details, it's the devil is in the details. That's the saying. I thought, yeah, but I'm not going to talk about that. First off, we don't believe in a devil, so there you go. That would be a separation of powers, so we can't do that. But this idea of the divine is in the details, the divine is in the details, is such a powerful idea for us about how we can actually begin to have a greater experience of spirit in our lives. So the definition that we're working with for mysticism, again, is it is a deep, direct experience of the divine. It's actually having that actual experience of it. It's way beyond any belief system that we might have. It's way beyond any intellectual knowing. It's not about theory. It's about intimacy. It's about having a deep and personal relationship with whatever it is that you call spirit. Call it God, call it the universe, call it energy, the intelligence. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's the idea that we have an experience of it in our lives in an intimate way. We're on first name basis with it. We talk with it. We commune with it. We exchange ideas with it. It downloads to us. We feed it inspiration. It is a constant cycle of this give and take between spirit and ourselves. We always have that within us. It's always there, whether we realize it or not. We just simply have to become awake to that experience. So, as I said, God is in everything. And this takes us back to our first, what Ernest Holmes, our founder, called the Declarations of Principle. Declarations of Principle are the statements that he wrote back in 1928 to explain what it is our philosophy, our belief system was all about. And so this first one, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, self-existent cause. That one manifests itself in, through, and as all creation, but it's not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the self-knowingness of spirit. It is absolutely that spirit is in everything, and everything is manifested for spirit to know more of itself. So if we look at that one phrase in there, this one manifests itself in and through all creation. In and through all creation. The divine is constantly expressing itself through its creation. It's the only way it shows up in the world, is through the creations that it has made. So God is contemplating itself as our lives. God is experiencing itself in the details of our lives. God experiences itself in our breath, in our thoughts, in our emotions, in our relationships. It experiences itself when we make tea in the morning. It experiences itself when we're folding our laundry. It experiences itself in our heartbreak and our greatest triumphs. It experiences itself in our ultimate joy and our deepest sorrows. Spirit experiences life through us. So therefore, it has to be in the details. It has to be in the mundane. One of the books I read in ministerial school was called The Sacred and the Profane. And I thought, why am I going to buy a book called The Sacred and the Profane? I don't want anything to do with profanity. Well, that's not true. I do have a lot to do with profanity. But but that idea of things being profane, being something we want to get away from. But the truth is, it's in all of it. It is moving through all of it. It is showing up as our wonderful high moments, and it's showing up in our deepest lows. There is never a time when we are without spirit. We may not feel it because we're unable to recognize it in the moment. But the more we get used to seeing it in these little details in our lives, the more we get used to experiencing it when we are cutting the grass, or when we are petting our dogs, or when we are talking with a friend, the more quickly we can recognize it in those mundane experiences, the more easily we see it in our trials, in the things that are hard in our lives. One of the people that I study, and I talk about him a lot, Joel Goldsmith, says, God doesn't need the storm or the earthquake to be seen. God is in the still, small voice. God is in the invisible. We often miss the divine. We often miss spirit because we're looking for the fireworks. We're thinking, well, if it's God, it's got to be grand. It's got to be big. It's got to show up in a glorious way. But mystics begin to look at the world with new eyes. And they see holiness in the ordinary. They see holiness in the trials and tribulations. They see holiness in the mundane and the profane. Because they have learned to look with deeper eyes, and they have learned to listen with deeper ears. Goldsmith here reminds us that the presence is felt in the inner stillness, not in the outer drama of our lives. It's felt when we get quiet enough and still enough and seek Spirit. He goes on to say, every daily experience is an opportunity to feel the presence of God, to witness it acting through you, speaking through you, loving through you. The divine is in that moment when you pause before you speak, especially when you're getting ready to have a difficult conversation. The divine is in that moment when you're sitting having your tea or your coffee and the sunlight drifts in through the window and shines on your table. And you recognize that presence. The divine is in the texture of a leaf, the softness of a blanket, the sensation of warm water on your hands as you wash them. It's in the sensation of, for me this morning as I was writing this, I picked up one of my dogs and I thought, I feel the Spirit when I hold this little being next to my heart. That comfort, that joy, knowing that that too is the presence of God. He says, we're not trying to bring God into our lives. God is in our life. It's already there. Our task is to recognize this truth in every detail of our existence. Recognize the truth in every detail of our existence. And the more frequently we recognize it when we are in a good space, the more easily it is to find it when we're being under trials and tribulations, when we are feeling those pressures and so forth of life. When we begin to see it daily, when we begin to see it in all of those little details in our lives, then we have a greater experience of it when we're out and about in the world. You know, this week happens to be one of the holiest of weeks for many people in the world. On Saturday began for the people of the Jewish tradition Passover. It runs for this week. And if you're familiar with the story of Moses, it's the time when the plagues of Egypt passed over the house of Israel, when the people of Israel were spared from God's wrath as he was punishing the people of Egypt. In conjunction with that is what we call the Holy Week in Christianity. Now, Christianity is formed from Judaism, so at this time of Passover in the Jewish tradition, a man named Jesus came to be, and he walked into a town in the Middle East on a Sunday, which happens to be celebrated today, and they called it Palm Sunday because they laid palm leaves down for his donkey to walk on, which was a symbol of honor at that time. How many of you remember going to churches and receiving palm leaves when you were in church? Yeah, I was thinking about it. I remember in Sunday school, the teachers giving us the palm leaves, and we made little crosses out of them. I tried to figure that out with paper today. Could not do that for anything. Must have been a trick to it, and I'm pretty crafty, but I couldn't get that one done. So, but I remember getting these palm leaves and hearing the stories in Sunday school about Jesus' journey through life that week. So these 2 weeks are pretty significant in these traditions. And so oftentimes people will come to church and they'll often attend their worship services at this time of the year. And I remember back in my 20s, I attended a Presbyterian church here in town for a couple of years. And I remember the pastor on one Easter Sunday just getting all over everybody because there were so many people there on Easter Sunday that weren't there during the rest of the year. Because they had to find it on that big holy day. They weren't looking for God all the way through the year. They had to wait for that big holy day, making it something grand. As Goldsmith says, they were all about the fireworks. not about the everyday details of life. Now, there's nothing wrong with only going to church once a year. There's nothing wrong with it at all, except what is it meaning for you? Are you only ever connecting with Spirit on those high and holy days? Spirit needs us to connect with it all the time. That's when our life becomes enriched. When we can find Spirit in these details, when we can find it in the mundane and the sacred as well. When we can find it when we're under these extreme situations in our lives. We can find it when we're in these highs, the greatest joys we've ever felt. And we can find it in the deepest lows. That's when we know that we have connected with Spirit. When we have that intimate relationship. You think about an intimate relationship. People that you are in an intimate relationship don't generally leave you when you're up or down. They stick with you. At least the good ones do. They stick with you and experience all those life's trials and tribulations. They experience the high moments with you, and they celebrate with you. And they are there to comfort you in the lowest moments. Well, so is God. So is Spirit. We just have to take the opportunity each and every moment to recognize its presence is there with us. To recognize that God in the details of our everyday, ordinary life. Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan monk, who many of you have probably read some of his books, he's got some fabulous books out there, says it this way. He says, everything belongs. Nothing can be excluded from the spiritual life because God is in all of it. God belongs in everything. And nothing can ever be excluded from our spiritual life. This changes everything when we really begin to understand this. We don't have to compartmentalize ourselves into Spirit's only happening on Sunday, or on Easter Sunday for some folks. Spirit is there all the time. We don't have to compartmentalize it into this is spiritual and this is not. Spirit is showing up through all of our aspects of our lives. The drive to work can be a spiritual experience. When we remember that the presence of God is the mind of every driver on the road, it becomes a spiritual experience. It changes how we move around the world. It can be in the burnt toast, or it can be in the Chateaubriand that you make for dinner. It doesn't matter. Spirit is there. It's in the difficult conversation, and it is in the most beautiful words of love. All of God is in all of life. And it is always looking back at itself through each and every one of us. Another author that I've discovered in the last few years is Mirabai Starr. She was a professor of, religious professor in New Mexico, and she translated some wonderful books of the saints from Catholic religion. St. Teresa of Avila, who I've studied for many years. Mirabai Starr has a wonderful book of hers. She also translated John of the Cross's work too, which is also a good, both of those are mystics, very well-known devout mystics from the Catholic religion. But Mirabai Starr writes this: mysticism is not about transcendence. It's not having to get out of ourselves. We don't have to go somewhere to become a mystic. We don't have to achieve some high level of spirituality to become a mystic. It's about embodying it. It's about recognizing that it's already within us. It's not about getting out of this world or out of this experience so that we can experience the mystic aspect of God. It is about recognizing it right here, right now. It's about being fully here and fully present with what is right now. This is a radical idea. It tells us to stop trying to escape our lives. Stop trying to seek something outside of ourselves, to bring in some kind of fulfillment that we think is out there just beyond our reach, and we just want to do this next thing and we're going to get it. We want to take the next workshop and then we'll become spiritual. Or we want to read the next book and we'll become enlightened. It's about recognizing that it's already here within us. The divine is not something that we reach out to after we've cleaned up ourselves, after we've perfected every aspect of our lives. The divine meets us right smack in the middle of the mess, right in between all of life's challenges. It meets us in every unanswered question. And if we're quiet enough and still enough, we can hear the words that we need to hear to move through that. So how do we begin to really do this? How do we begin to see this divine in the details? So here's a few ways that we can do that. The first thing we can do is to sanctify the ordinary. How many of you ever made a ritual out of making your morning drink? Your morning tea, your morning coffee. A couple of years ago, I started going to Mexico frequently, and my friend's boyfriend there owns a coffee shop, and he makes his own coffee. He cultivates the beans that he grinds together. He picks them from here and picks them from there and roasts them, and it is phenomenal coffee. And it is best made through a pour-over process. So I don't make a big pot of coffee in the morning. I make my one single cup. And it is such a delight to put those grounds into my little, what is it called? Melita coffee pour-over thing. And it has a little brown filter in there, and I put the coffee grounds in there, and I boil the water, and I pour it over, and it makes this beautiful brown foam. And I just delight in it, and I watch it as it seeps through into that filter, into my cup. And I bought myself a little little electric whisk that I can stick in my coffee pot to froth up the cream in there. And I sit down and I smell it. And it is absolutely a ritual for me to enjoy this morning cup of coffee. We can do this with any aspect of our lives. If you're going to take a bath at night, make it a sacred experience. Add some bath salts that smell really wonderful. Set some beautiful music going. Light a candle. Make everything around us that is ordinary and mundane into a time of connecting with Spirit. Create little altars in your home so that wherever you turn in your home, you are reminded that the presence is right there, that it's showing up through every aspect of your life. Sanctify the ordinary. Practice the pause. Too often we get so caught up in the doing of our lives, we forget to take that time and pause for a moment and just simply be with it. For me, I remind myself to do this by saying, just breathe. If I tell myself to just breathe in a moment of stress, it's not about dismissing it. It's about taking that moment and allowing myself to become still. And oftentimes remembering, yeah, God's here too. This is something I don't really want to have to deal with, but I know the presence of the divine is right there with me. It's accompanying me through this journey. Practice the pause. Take those moments when you can become still. They don't have to be more than 5 seconds. Just enough to connect yourself. Just enough to disconnect from the trauma or the drama that's going on around you, and to come back into yourself and remember the presence is right there. So before reacting, pause. And if you can, let that silence expand a little bit. And listen for that still small voice. It's just waiting for an opening to speak to you. And the last one, to see with soft eyes. This is about setting aside our judgment. So often, because of our experiences we've had in the past, because of the thoughts and belief system we were raised with, because of ideas that we've incorporated from other aspects of our lives, we often approach most situations with a little bit of judgment. Sometimes we even do things to anticipate those experiences because of judgment we've had about them. I don't know if anybody else ever did this, but I used to rehearse conversations long before they happened. In my own mind, I'd have a conversation with somebody, especially if it was a challenging one. I'd have that conversation in my mind, so I was kind of rehearsing it. I was anticipating it. And I came to it with some judgment. And oftentimes that judgment became a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when I learned to soften that judgment, and I learned that through mindfulness, through the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is about being in the present moment, being aware of the thoughts that are going on in our heads, and not reacting to them, not judging them as good or bad. It just is. When I can approach a situation without judgment, I open myself up to what's available there. I approach it with curiosity. I approach it with an openness. I approach it with a reminder to myself, God's right there too. It's in the situation. It's in the other person. It's in everything around it. And when I can approach a situation with softer eyes and letting go of my judgment, then I can begin to have a different experience about it. I often fall back to the wonderful poet, Sufi mystic Rumi, and he says it this way: there are 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground, and there are 1,000 ways to go home again. This is a reminder that every situation we go to has the presence of the divine in it. That's what he means by go home again. It's touching the presence of God. It's bringing ourselves home to that knowledge the Spirit is right there with us. It's taking the ordinary and sanctifying it. The kneeling and kissing the ground is to sanctify the ordinary. This is a reminder that our true nature is not limited by the visible form around us. It is not limited by the drama that we might be experiencing. This is a reminder that every moment, every breath, every emotion, every sensation is all part of that sacred dance. It's a part of who and what we are. When we take that moment to remember that the divine is in all of those details, that the divine is present in everything. Let me leave you with this one. The mystic sees the ocean in a drop, the universe in a gaze, and the infinite in an inhale. So breathe in and connect with that spirit. Allow it to feel you. Allow it to move through you. Knowing that it is showing up as you right here and right now, just as it does always. This is that sacred pause, that moment of intimate connection. And so we're going to take this into our spiritual practice of prayer. Today is a prayer wall. So for those of you that are new here today, this is an opportunity for you to come up and ask for personal prayer. So our form of prayer is a little different than most. We call it affirmative prayer, or its technical name is spiritual mind treatment. They called it treatment because they used to do it in sanitariums back in the day. This is an opportunity for you to come up and have somebody know truth for you when you can't quite see it yourself. And so we have what we call God qualities. This is a list of 20 of them. There's a lot more. These are things that are absolute about spirit. We believe that spirit is absolute abundance. It shows up in all different ways. We believe it is perfect love, unconditional and whole. We believe that it is vitality and energy and moving through us at all times. We believe it is perfection and wisdom and harmony and balance. This is what we believe is the truth about God. And so our form of prayer has 5 steps. The first step is where we talk about God. We describe it. We talk about all these wonderful qualities and how they're showing up. In the second step, we unify ourselves with it because as I've just said, there's not a place where God is not. It is in us. It is showing up through us. It is living our lives for us. And so we unify ourselves with that idea. The third step, this is where you come in, is about realization. And so in this step, think about some issue that you might be dealing right now and which one of these qualities most reflects that. So for instance, if you're having some financial difficulties right now, you may want to know something about abundance. Or you may want to know something about circulation. Or perhaps it's freedom. If you're having a health challenge, maybe you want to know something about vitality or wholeness or perfection or flow. Think about the issues that you're dealing with right now that you would like to have prayer for. And I'm going to invite you up here in a few moments to ask for prayer. Our practitioners are going to stand in front here. And I have 2 practitioners who have volunteered to go to anyone who has difficulty standing for that long. So you have to stand in a line and then come up here and stand. So if that's a challenge for you and you would still like prayer, raise your hand and one of these 2 practitioners will come and sit next to you and do a spiritual mind treatment for you there. So that's our 3rd step. Then our 4th step is simple gratitude. We just give thanks. We give thanks for knowing that this is the truth and that God is operating in our lives. And the last one sometimes is done as an afterthought, but it's actually really quite powerful because it is a moment of surrender. We release it. We let it go. We have claimed it. We have stated what is true, and we have made our affirmations, and then we're done. We let it go. We've turned it over to Spirit to allow Spirit to do what it does. So I'm going to invite the practitioners to come forward now, and they're going to form a line in front of me. I'm going to do the first 2 stages of the treatment, and then I will ask you to come up, and I'd like you to line up in the center aisle, and then you'll come to one of the practitioners, and then when you're done, you'll go around the corner and off to the side. We don't have very many practitioners here today? Well, okay. Brand's coming, good. Kelly, why don't you come on up too? Merlon, would you just be the one who does the people raise their hand? And if there is nobody raising their hand, then you can come up to the front too, so we can move through our lines there. Okay. All right. When you come up to a practitioner, it's very simple. You just tell them what your name is because they want to make this prayer direct for you. So you just say, my name is Laura, and I would like to have creativity. And they will do a prayer for creativity for you. All right. So let's just take a moment, breathe in. Opening ourselves up to what is available here for us now. And so right here and right now, I know that there is only one power, one presence, one divine creative source of all. I know that one is in, through, and as all creation. It is the isness and the allness and the fullness of all life. It was here in the beginning, and it will be here evermore. I know that nothing exists outside of this one. And because I know there's only one, I know that I am one with it. That the power and the presence of the divine has manifested itself in me and is moving through me right here and right now. I know that this grace, this ease, this perfection is the truth of my being. And because I know it's true for me, I know that it's true for everyone. For we are all that unique and perfect emanation of a love so powerful it could do nothing but create more of itself. And so knowing this truth and claiming this is the unification of all life, I invite each and every one of you to step forward for prayer. And so we just give thanks. We are so, so grateful for every prayer that has been uttered here today, and for all those that have been left unsaid, knowing that the divine is moving itself into action through, in, and as each and every one of us. I know that this power is transcendent. It is palpable, and it is making itself known right here and right now. And so I just release this word into the law, into that creative mind that knows no lack, no limitation, has no boundaries, and is always unfolding itself in perfection. I let it go, and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is.